welcome to Political Musings. I'm your host, Amy Manuel. Today I have a special guest. I am here in Austin once again for a lobby day. Now, the last time I was in Austin for a lobby day, which was last Monday with Equality Texas, I did not try to bring my stuff with me to do this remotely because I knew I was going to be riding a bus and I wouldn't have a room where I could go and do this. So this week, because I am here for several days, we're doing it from my hotel room, and I have a special guest who was a speaker this morning in our training. Her name is Grace Bonilla. Grace, welcome to the show, and please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Grace. I am a public education policy advocate at Texas Impact. Texas Impact is an interfaith public policy nonprofit in Austin. We are nonpartisan and we have a membership of congregations, synagogues, and Muslim social action groups, and as well individual members who tell us like what their issues are and what they would like to advocate for, and we have lobbyists on the team to help lobby for their interests and help mobilize them to speak their mind at the Capitol.
Well, that's wonderful. I want to talk briefly. We have had a lot happen since the last time I did this show, including uh, the attempted elimination of the Department of Education. Can you speak to that a little more?
So the interesting thing about Texas Impact is we only focus on statewide issues. I think that a lot of the things that I follow in Texas are getting a little shaky because people are nervous about that, and people are nervous about the implications a uh, elimination of Department of Education would have on all of the different things that we're currently working on in Texas. And so I think people are fearful that all the good things that they're trying to advocate for could potentially be undermined and or just changed based on what happens with the Department of Education. So I think that it's definitely on people's minds, and I think they're trying to just focus on what they can do here and just see what happens when it happens.
Well, there are some other things that happened before we get into all the current bills and things. You know, when the ledge is in session, which here in Texas is for about 6 months every odd numbered year.
Mm-hmm.
So we only meet in odd numbered years. They say hide the women, hide the whiskey. The ledge is in session. No one is safe, and oh, I've been doing this for 22 years,
Mm-hmm.
participating in lobby days, going back and forth to the Capitol, testifying, whatnot. And I gotta say, it's gets scarier every year. There's more and more. But I do want to talk about for just a second. I want to address the fact that we have four American soldiers missing in Lithuania. Missing. And uh, on a personal level, my grandfather on my father's side of the family was born in Ukraine, and my grandmother was born in Lithuania. So, right now, the things that are going on at the national level are impacting my family personally. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I don't know how many relatives I still have in those countries. Most of my family came to Texas in the 1800s,
Mm-hmm.
but um, what goes on there is frightening because of the broader implications. Because, in my opinion, we've already entered World War III, and because of the current administration, they have decided to put us on the Axis power side instead of the Allies, and has trying to start wars with Canada of all places and Greenland. I mean, I want to. I'm sure it's on the bumper there for my board op, but I'm not in Bedford today. I'm in Austin, but all I can hear is Wallace Shawn saying, "Do you want me to send you back where I found you, unemployed in Greenland?" But that's where we are. But let's get down to the topic at hand, because there's just entirely too much going on at the national level to even touch on just what's happened in the last 2 weeks, because they're moving like a bulldozer through our federal government. So we have to concentrate today and right now on what's happening in Texas. So I'm going to let you kind of take over at this point and talk about some of the things that are at issue.
Great. Yeah. So I think that I can totally relate to the sentiment that you were just talking about, feeling overwhelmed with everything that's going on nationwide. And I think that's why people feel really impactful and empowered in Texas, because it's it's their statewide government. They can go to the Capitol and they can meet with their legislators and they can be face to face with these people, versus I think sometimes people feel some distance from national government and federal government. So I think that it's really good to empower people like we do at Texas Impact to actually go down to the Capitol, or, email their legislators, or even just call and, kind of make that impact. But so I work on public education, and I would say that the big issue that we're working on right now is definitely school vouchers, also commonly known as school choice or education savings accounts. And what's currently the status update of the school vouchers is that the Senate heard their voucher bill, Senate Bill 2, and it passed through the Education K through 16 committee, went to the floor and was voted favorably off the floor in the Senate. So it was then sent to the House. And the House, however, took up their own version of a voucher bill, which was House Bill 3, had a little bit of differences than Senate Bill 2, and heard public testimony famously for 22 hours. And left it pending in committee. And so, the last couple of weeks, we've kind of just been patiently waiting to see what happens, not really sure what the next move is. And then this past Friday, we heard that Senate Bill 2 will be heard in a formal meeting tomorrow by the House Public Education Committee, and they will be voting on Senate Bill 2 and House Bill 2, which is the funding bill, school funding bill, which raises the basic allotment by $280, which is not the increase a lot of people are hoping for, including Texas Impact. We would love to see more, but we are in support of any dollars going to public education, so we're happy to see it. Wish it was a little bit more, but that's a whole different thing.
I just want to point out something that I've been doing this, like I said, for 22 years, but I just learned last week from the great state representative Alma Allen, who gave us an education on how Texas government works. And that is that the first 100 bill numbers in the Senate and the House are dedicated to the priorities of the governor. So you can tell by that number, Senate Bill 2.
Yes. So Senate Bill 2 was, or school choice rather, was defined by both Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Patrick as legislative priorities for both of them. They had separate sort of legislative priorities that they both released. And Senate Bill 2 was on that list for both of them. And so school choice is very important for both of them, and kind of why we saw Senate.
Let's stop doing that. Let's not use their language, because it's not about choice.
Exactly. I think a lot of people say, a lot of people who are not a fan of education savings account or vouchers, kind of flip the meaning and go, it's not school choice, it's the school's choice. And so that's some rhetoric that we hear a lot in testimony. But yeah, I think that is why the prioritization of education savings accounts is why we saw Senate Bill 2 so quickly in the session and so early in the session, and kind of why we see it moving so fast through both chambers. So we expect a committee substitute tomorrow, just because there were some differences in House Bill 3 and Senate Bill 2. And we think maybe there's going to be something in the middle that is going to be voted on tomorrow, but we won't know until the meeting starts tomorrow, and then we can get our hands on it somehow. But that is the status update with vouchers. I I think that it is a little bit of a daunting subject. You know, it's like a 35-page bill that you have to read to sort of get into the nitty-gritty of details. But essentially, it is just taxpayer public funds going to private schools, and we at Texas Impact are proud defenders of public education and would love to see more funding go to public education, and don't want to see a diversion of funds go to this whole creation of a new program. So,
and the training that I'm having today for tomorrow's lobby day is with the National Council of Jewish Women, and so my guest Grace, sorry, spoke with us this morning about this and the importance of it. So it's important to know, because one of the things that when I went and lobbied with the Anti-Defamation League, because we are Jewish, one of the staffers that we met with immediately assumed that we were in favor of vouchers, which is very, very far from the truth.
Interesting.
But it was a very nice man. He was a Midwesterner from either like Wisconsin or Minnesota, someplace like that. And a very sweet man, but he wanted to assure us when we sat down at the table that the senator he works for is supporting Greg Abbott's voucher bill.
Right. I think that there is definitely an assumption that people of faith across the board would be in favor of school vouchers or education savings account because of the potential benefit it could have for parochial private schools. But I think that from the people that I've interacted with on, in a variety of faiths, they say we already have school choice. I can send my child to a private school if I want to. I could send my child to a charter school. I could put my kid in a magnet school. There already is that school choice. And so I think that they acknowledge the school choice that already exists, and that people shouldn't be sending their taxpayer money to fund someone else's religious education, because they believe in the separation of church and state, and that religion should not be in public schools, and public funds should not be used for a religious reason. And so I have encountered many people who are people of faith who are not in favor of an education savings account or a school voucher. And I think there are a lot more of them than people think.
Well, and it's especially important to people who live in rural counties and in rural areas, because most of Texas doesn't have them. Correct. Right? People, if you're not in, let's say, Denton and Beaumont, Beaumont where I was born, Denton where I live now, they have parochial schools. And I went to one in Beaumont. I went to Trinity Methodist Nursery School. I went to, and it's interesting. The reason that I was taken out of public school in second grade and put into a parochial Episcopal based elementary school was because my teacher in second grade at my very public school, well after Brown v. Board of Education, was making us pray to Jesus. And my mother went and spoke to that principal and that teacher and dressed them up and down. Yeah, we were supposed to daily say a prayer to Jesus,
Wow.
which, for those of you not Jewish, that is against our religion.
Mm-hmm.
So back in like 1970, maybe it was 71 or 69. I am so old that I don't remember what year I attended second grade. but but yes, so that happened, and this is bringing that back, which leads us right into the next thing.
Yes, there are two Senate bills which, similarly to Senate Bill 2, are, Senate Bill 10 and 11, so those pretty early numbers that were legislative priorities for Lieutenant Governor Patrick. And so Senate Bill 10 is authored by Senator King, and it has been passed through the Education K through 16 committee, went to the floor, was voted favorably out of the floor, and is now on the intent calendar or not on the intent calendar, has been referred to the House Public Education Committee. So that's sort of the next step. But Senate Bill 10 would require public school classrooms to have a framed copy of the Ten Commandments, a King James version of the Ten Commandments, in a framed. It must, there's a size requirement, and it must be in a conspicuous place. So, can't be like in a closet or behind a door or anything like that. And people, I mean, rightfully so, have some concerns about the bill and the religious, I'm like, discrimination it could possibly lead to, and the fact that, well, what should a Jewish student do if they see the Ten Commandments and it's the King James version? What should a Muslim child do who sees the Ten Commandments and, that doesn't interact with their religion, or a Hindu child? And,
Or atheist, or
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. And I think people are worried about the isolation it could cause in classrooms, and just the sort of disagreement it could cause in classrooms, and also the issues it could cause for teachers who are not trained to teach that material, and might not even be religious, or might be a religion that doesn't abide by the Ten Commandments. And so I think it causes a lot of issues in the classroom, or could potentially
also,
cause a lot of issues in the classroom.
as came up this morning, you're a kindergarten teacher. Explain to your kindergartner what it means: thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife or ox.
Yeah.
What?
It's a,
I love that we're in the same sentence with ox.
It brings in a lot of things that I think people are worried about will then be discussed in the classroom, because I mean, young children, they're curious, they trust their teachers, they ask their teachers lots of questions, and I think it puts teachers in a very tough position. And I think people are rightfully worried about teachers already, and their pay and how overworked they are, class sizes and things like that. So it just adds another thing to that long list. And I think yeah, people sorry, let me just get my water, my voice gets all gravelly. People came out and testified against that bill, and had lots of concerns.
Yeah. How many people testified against it?
Oh, that's a good question.
Do we know?
I don't know exactly. I feel as though I was there for maybe I was there for an entire day, but it didn't start until about 2 p.m. It was maybe about like 3 hours of testimony. So not in the hundreds, but there was definitely some good, some solid testimony. Our own from our Texas Impact Board, Pastor Jessica Kane gave a really good testimony against the bill, and so there was some quality testimony. It might not have been quantity, but there was quality.
Yeah, this is one thing. The person who hosts the show after me, Esther Davis, who I adore, she's been on my show many times. I've been on hers, and one of the few areas where we are in complete disagreement is about prayer in school and this sort of thing. And so you can be on the same side of the aisle or on the opposite side of the aisle and agree or disagree on this subject. But I think as Jewish women in particular, education is so important, but we as Jews over generations and thousands of years have learned that when you start mixing religion with government, it never goes well for us. Never. There is no instance in history where this is a good thing for us.
Yeah, I think that there's another bill, Senate Bill 11, which is, also one of those high up numbers, by Senator Middleton, which would allow school boards to pass a resolution that requires public schools to send out a consent form asking whether or not parents would consent for their child to participate in a period of prayer in school. So
official school prayer.
Yes.
Not just a moment of silence. Yes. They already do.
Yeah, so completely separate from the moment of silence. Yes. And so there is a consent form. Students would have to return it. And then those who have consented would allegedly go, in a classroom with other consenting students. And it's not clear if a teacher would lead or how exactly it would pan out. The bill says to read the Bible or other religious texts. So it names the Bible. It doesn't name other religious texts that could be read. So kind of leaves the door open in that way. But it's a little unclear how exactly this period would.
So maybe the teachings of Buddha.
Exactly. So I think people have questions of, what happens when different religions are in the room? Is it a group activity? Is it an individual activity? So there are a lot of questions about how exactly this would work. And I think because of kind of how unclear it is, it causes people to have a lot of concerns because, they can't be too sure of exactly how it's going to play out.
Yeah. What takes me back to when I was in high school. I was in a Jewish youth group in Dallas. We were in charge of I was on the team that was in charge of writing the services for Six Flags weekend.
Fun.
Yeah. Which in the Friday night service, we put in some quotes from the teachings of Buddha, just because we could. It worked. It worked for us. But yes, I mean, I go back to that, moment, that time in second grade where I had this teacher telling me I have to pray to Jesus every morning. And I know that that's against my religion. And what would happen with these kids, they're going to be ostracized. They're going to be, oh, you're not, Jesus doesn't love you. You're going to go to another room while we pray.
Yeah, I think that people are really concerned about the social implications, and similarly to Senate Bill 10, people are worried about the implications it could mean for teachers. Teachers cannot, according to the bill, teachers cannot, require or coerce students to participate in the period of prayer. But encouragement is allowed, and so I think people also have a lot of feelings about that word specifically not being included in the bill. And students trust their teachers, and students have a relationship with their teachers. And so I think not including that in the bill has a lot of parents and just people in general worried about how that dynamic could play into the social aspect in school. So it's definitely one of the concerns.
Are there any good education bills going through the Texas legislature this year?
Yes, so there is. So also tomorrow, House Bill 2 is a bill that would raise the basic allotment by $280. There is a bill by Donna Howard that would raise the basic allotment by more than $280. And then I think Representative Goodwin has a bill that would automatically adjust the basic allotment for inflation. So and each year, each school
So
year,
it would automatically go up adjusted for inflation.
correct. So I think that those are two bills that people really support, and I think the adjustment for inflation is something that I've seen bipartisan support for. I believe it's Representative Landgraf that has a similar bill that would adjust for inflation. It either adjusts for inflation or just raises the allotment a significant amount. So it's bipartisan, and people, I think, something that we've seen on the voucher issue is that there is bipartisan support for public schools, and that is not something that is, purely democratic or purely on the left. It has long time been an issue that people on both sides of the aisle have agreed upon, and I think that people are really showing out on both sides of the aisle for the voucher issue, and really emphasizing that it is not a partisan issue. We both see the value in public education, and I think it's been really impactful.
There was something else that I noticed on here. Let's see here. We have we have a life begins at conception in public school curriculum, HB 196.
So a little slightly out of my scope because I don't really do like repro stuff, but that I think that Wendy Davis is also here speaking, and I think she was also she was talking about this. I don't know if you caught that part, but she discussed that that was something that Planned Parenthood was opposing, and I think that people or from what I heard in the room just now, I think that people have concerns about the aspects of uh, sex education or health in general, what aspects are included and what aren't, what isn't included, and so I think that is one of the concerns for House Bill 196. What are we teaching the kids versus what are we not teaching them?
On the good bill side, House Bill 358 from Representative Busey provides for free pre-kindergarten for certain children. Do you know any more details about that?
Yes, so there are a lot of bills this session that have similar language. Free pre-K, free daycare for certain children, and the certain children part just relates to the sort of qualifications they lay out in the bill. Some of them, allow for children of teachers, children of state employees, children of active military personnel, children, so there are a lot of categories like that that people include in those types of bills. And Texas Impact is very supportive of free full day pre-kindergarten because obviously it's something that is so needed. Daycare has become so expensive and
Right.
so such a obstacle for a lot of families, and we are really hoping that some sort of pre-K funding bill gets passed this session. We would love to see it.
Yeah, I think it's so important, especially for working parents. If you're not, let's say you work full time for minimum wage in the state of Texas, which has not gone up in quite some time. If you are somebody like a waitress who gets tips, the minimum tipped wage is $2.13 an hour and has not gone up since the year that my 32-year-old was born.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone is familiar with inflation over the past couple of years. The daily cost of items that we use every day is going up so much, and I think that we haven't seen those sorts of price raises reflected in daycare, and I think that it's from what I know, I think there's also difficulty on the side of those providing daycare to stay afloat, and so they would love to have more children and serve more people, but then they also need to stay afloat, and so it's a really hard balance. And so I think providing funding for people to go to pre-K, whatever qualifications it might be in the bill that would pass, I think it's mutually beneficial. Yeah.
Right. And like I said, there's so many people, if you're the cost of daycare is so exorbitant. You want women to have all these babies, their spouse dies, or they've never married, or they got divorced. The single parents, when you are making these poverty level wages, to be able to afford to go to work in order to send their kids to school, or to do anything, you need to provide them that help for pre-K. I think that's so important. So important.
There are a number of bills. I think I know, yeah, Busey, Representative Busey has a bill, and I'm trying to remember. I think that also maybe Senator Menendez has a bill. Has a similar bill.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, Senate Bill 163 and Senate Bill 175. Perfect. Yeah.
Those full day pre-K programs. Then we've got a House Bill 659 promotes cultural inclusion in the social studies curriculum. Can you expound on that at all?
I'm not super familiar with this bill. I think that I've read it or maybe skimmed it a little bit. From what I remember from looking at it once or twice, I believe that it promotes kind of like a more multicultural approach to social studies curriculum, and making sure that a variety of cultures are included in social studies curriculum. I will say I see this one at the top. House Bills 276 and 1157 by Representatives Busey and Hinojosa. It's not as it doesn't sound as straightforward as cultural inclusion, but it's funding for education based on overall enrollment rather than average attendance per student. So this is also,
excuse me,
it's a popular issue that people are advocating for, because currently the school finance formula is based on daily attendance. So that's how many kids are attending school each day, not how many kids are enrolled in the school. And so changing this one piece of the school funding formula would really have an impact and really make sure that every single student who is enrolled in the school is accounted for and getting proper funding, rather than not getting funding just because one kid was sick and
a bunch of people got chicken pox or measles or
yeah, something crazy
measles.
Like
I haven't gotten a chance to talk about on this show since the last time I did it 2 weeks ago. And we had at the national level, they not only are taking funding away from vaccine research and cancer research and Alzheimer's and all that, but then they started closing the agencies that respond, affecting Lubbock, Texas, where they closed the agency that was responding to the measles outbreak in West Texas that has now spread to 18 different states. I don't know where this state, I swear. All right. Let's see. There was another one. Oh, House Bill 1123, J. Lopez, requires genetic testing of any student suspected of not complying with the biological sex on their birth certificate if they wish to participate in UIL activities.
Yes, so that's House Bill 1123, and so we have an LGBTQIA team at Texas Impact, and so it's me. I have the public school defenders. There's an LGBTQIA team, a reproductive health team, immigration, ending gun violence, and we have a climate team. So this one kind of overlaps with a couple. Could be sort of LGBTQIA, and then also obviously is a part of the public school system. So kind of is both of ours. But I think that there's a really big concern about the word suspected and the implication that has on students who are simply just trying to participate in extracurriculars. And I think it gives a lot of leeway to those who are regulating this potential law. And so I think it just provides a lot of fear for students. And I think that it just it fosters a scary environment for students who are just trying to participate in normal school activities.
When I started in school, back in the dark ages, girls were not allowed to wear slacks. Now, by the time I graduated, if you wore anything but blue jeans, they would ask you if it was picture day. But from one extreme to the other. But this is. I'm wondering how on earth you enforce something like, are we going to have inspections of genitals? Is that going to be happening?
From what I remember about this bill, and please double check, please don't take my word as for sure, but from what I remember from reading this bill is there is this suspicion, and so I'm trying to remember how exactly this suspicion, or who is carrying out that sort of who is being suspicious. I'm not really sure. I think that it could be it's possible that it could be just
it requires genetic testing.
Yes. And so I think it could be school faculty or potentially other students who sort of like report that suspicion. And then there is the separate genetic testing that does take place because of that sort of initial suspicion. And so it's really scary and is just something that students should not have to deal with. I mean, it's sports, it's extracurriculars, and it's something that students should be enjoying, not being afraid of having such an intimate inspection. I mean, I can't understand it.
I mean, where are the funds coming from to do genetic testing of anybody that wants to participate in UIL? How are we going to pay for that?
It does.
That's kind of expensive,
Yeah, I think that it is really frustrating to see bills such as this that are sort of creating a process and creating some sort of operation that doesn't feel completely necessary when there are other things that schools really, really need funding for, so like special education and, facilities or school safety or something like that.
Teacher
pay or teacher raises even. And so
supplies in the classroom.
And so I think that is something that can be frustrating for a lot of people who are reading bills such as 1123, because it sort of is creating more bureaucracy for schools that need funding for so many other things before this is even discussed.
Yeah, we have another bill, and I think this is probably the last one we're really going to have time to get into, and that HB 1014, HB 1016 from Representative Toth. Another goddamn bathroom bill.
It is indeed a bathroom bill.
This one, it looks like it limits based on sex assigned at birth and imposes $100,000 fine per violation.
So this, I was not at Texas Impact last session. I think that there was obviously a lot of advocacy against bathroom bills, and similar to the bill we just talked about, the sort of fear it instills in students over something that is just completely unnecessary. And I think that the financial component of this just makes it that much more scary, and causes a lot of issues for students and teachers and school officials. Who is, who's regulating this, who reports this? I think that it puts everyone in the school in a really hard position, because no one wants to force a family to pay $100,000 for something their kid did potentially by accident, or doesn't know the implications of, or things like that. And so I think it,
and again, how are we enforcing this? Are we doing inspections? Like, who is guarding the bathroom door?
Exactly.
To say that this person can't go in there.
Is there a bouncer? It's not really clear.
Oh, lift your skirt.
Yeah. So
pull down your pants.
I think the unanswered questions also can make people feel really nervous about bills like these, because sort of leaves it up to interpretation, and people, I think, want more answers as to how exactly bills like these would play out in real life.
Well, that's about all we've got time for. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I just plucked Grace from training right after she spoke. Can you come upstairs lunchtime and and be my guest? And I got another commitment. Not next week. Next week we're going to have a candidate for city council in Denton, Karen DeVinny, and I'm looking forward to that. And then either the week after or the week after that, I am going to have former state senator Wendy Davis, now head of Planned Parenthood Votes, Texas. And we're going to talk more about that, because y'all know that's my favorite subject.
That'll be fun.
Well,
might not be a fun topic to talk about, but hopefully it'll be a good conversation.
Well, and the couple of times that in recent history in Texas legislative session that I have testified against a bathroom bill back in 2017 and a host of anti-LGBT bills in the last legislative session. Well, I ended with this. This Texas woman is a mother. Don't make me come down here again. As I remind you each and every week, get registered, get informed, get politically active. Emphasis on that active right now, especially. Get politically active and go vote. One of the things I learned today, there's at both the national and state level, they're trying to say, if you don't vote in a 25-month period, you lose your voter registration. So if you don't vote in the midterms or in a municipal election, and I hope every one of my listeners votes every opportunity, whether it's a primary or a municipal, or in odd numbered years, we vote for amending the Texas Constitution. or, any of those things, you take every opportunity that you have and you take every opportunity to get involved. And as I tell you each and every week, get registered, get informed, get politically active, and go vote. And if you don't have anything nice to say, come sit by me.
Love it.